Welcome to Audiobook Library. In this video, we'll dive into The Power of Now, a groundbreaking book by Eckhart Tolle. This book offers a powerful message that guides you to live in the present moment, a practice that can lead to true peace and happiness. Chapter 1. You are not your mind. Most people spend their entire lives trapped in their own minds, mistakenly believing that the thoughts they think define who they are. This constant mental activity, the voice in your head that judges, complains, worries, and remembers, often feels like the essence of your identity. But this is a fundamental misconception. You are not your mind. You are something far greater. The mind is a tool, and like any tool, it has its uses. It is essential for solving problems, making decisions, and creating ideas. However, when the mind becomes overly dominant, it creates suffering. It fills your life with noise, distracting you from the richness of the present moment. When you identify too closely with your thoughts, you are trapped in the mental stories your mind creates. These stories are usually centered on the past or the future, two places that don't actually exist in reality. The past exists only as a collection of memories in your mind. While memories can be helpful for learning and growth, they often become a source of pain. Your mind replays past mistakes, failures, or traumas, dragging you into regret, guilt, or bitterness. On the other hand, the future is a mental projection, a collection of hopes, fears, and expectations. Worrying about the future creates anxiety and stress, even though the future is entirely uncertain. In this way, the mind keeps you trapped in a cycle of regret over what has been and fear of what might come. What it neglects is the present moment, the only place where life actually happens. The driving force behind this mental chaos is the ego. The ego is the part of your mind that creates a false sense of self. It is obsessed with comparison, control, and validation. It tells you that you are not enough as you are, that you need more achievements, more possessions, more approval from others. The ego thrives on dissatisfaction, keeping you in a constant state of striving and discontent. However, there is a way to break free from this cycle: awareness. Awareness is the ability to step back and observe your thoughts without attaching to them. When you become aware, you realize that your thoughts are just mental processes. They are not who you are. They are not the truth. Instead, you are the observer, the consciousness that watches these thoughts come and go. For example, imagine you're sitting quietly and your mind starts worrying about an upcoming deadline. Instead of getting swept up in the worry, pause and notice the thought. I'm worried about the deadline. Simply observe it without judgment. By doing this, you create a gap between yourself and the thought. This gap is where freedom begins. Tolle explains that the mind is an incredibly useful tool, but it should serve you, not control you. When you stop identifying with the voice in your head, you can use your mind more intentionally. You can think when it's necessary and set thinking aside when it's not. This allows you to access a deeper level of peace and clarity. Living in the now, the present moment, is the ultimate key to liberation. The present is where life unfolds, where beauty, love, and joy are experienced. But most people miss it because they are too busy living in their minds. Practicing presence involves shifting your attention away from mental noise and into the here and now. You can start by noticing simple things: the feeling of your breath, the sensation of your body, or the sounds around you. These practices ground you in the present moment and help quiet the mind. The transition to living in the now is not instant. It takes practice and patience. At first, you may notice how deeply attached you are to your thoughts. The ego will resist, trying to pull you back into old patterns of thinking. But with consistent effort, you can weaken the ego's grip and discover a profound sense of inner stillness. As you cultivate presence, you'll begin to notice a shift in your life. Stress and anxiety will decrease. You'll experience a greater sense of peace no matter what challenges arise. You'll connect more deeply with others as you'll be fully present in your interactions. Most importantly, you'll reconnect with your true self, the awareness beyond thought, untouched by the chaos of the mind. This chapter lays the foundation for a transformative journey. It invites you to see beyond the illusion of the mind and step into the reality of the now. In this state, you are no longer a prisoner of your thoughts. You are free. Chapter 2. The Power of the Present Moment. The central teaching of this chapter is the profound realization that the present moment is all we ever truly have. Most people spend their lives caught in a continuous cycle of reliving the past or worrying about the future. However, neither the past nor the future exists in the way we believe. The only reality is the present, the eternal now. Recognizing and embracing this truth is the key to transforming your life. Why we resist the present, one of the greatest obstacles to living fully in the now, is our resistance to it. The mind thrives on the illusion of time, dividing existence into past, present, and future. It clings to the past through memories, guilt, or nostalgia, while projecting itself into the future through plans, ambitions, and fears. But this focus on time creates suffering because it pulls us away from the life that is unfolding right now. The mind often resists the present moment by labeling it as not good enough. It constantly seeks fulfillment somewhere else, convincing you that happiness lies in a future achievement or situation. However, this perpetual striving is a trap. Even when you achieve what you desire, the mind quickly shifts to the next goal, keeping you in a state of dissatisfaction. Tolle explains that this resistance stems from the ego, which sees the now as a threat. The ego survives by identifying with time and keeping you distracted from the peace and power of the present. To transcend this resistance, you must break free from the mind's time-bound patterns and anchor yourself in the present moment. The illusion of time. The concept of time is practical in the physical world, helping us plan and organize. But psychologically, time is an illusion. The past is nothing more than a memory, a collection of mental impressions stored in your mind. The future, on the other hand, is a mental projection. It hasn't happened yet and may never unfold as you imagine. Life always unfolds in the now. Even when you recall the past or imagine the future, you are doing so in the present moment. The now is the only point of access to life, and recognizing this truth is transformative. Tolle encourages you to reflect on this question. What problem do I have at this moment? In most cases, the answer is none. While challenges may arise in the future or have occurred in the past, the present moment is rarely as problematic as the mind makes it out to be. How to enter the now, living in the now, requires a shift in awareness. Instead of identifying with your thoughts, you become the observer of your thoughts. This creates a space between you and the mental chatter, allowing you to experience the present without judgment or resistance. Here are some practical steps Tolle offers to help you enter the now. Focus on your senses. The body is always rooted in the present moment, unlike the mind, which drifts into time. By paying attention to your senses, you can ground yourself in the now. Feel the texture of the ground beneath your feet. Listen to the sounds around you, or notice the rhythm of your breathing. These simple practices draw your attention away from the mind and into the present. Let go of judgment. The mind constantly judges the present moment, labeling it as good, bad, or insufficient. Tolle advises dropping this judgment. Accept the now as it is, without wishing it were different. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation. It means embracing reality as the starting point for change. Practice inner stillness. Silence and stillness are portals to the present moment. When you quiet your mind, you can sense the deep peace and presence that always exists beneath the surface of your thoughts. This stillness isn't something you create. It's already there. You simply need to access it by letting go of mental noise. The power of presence. When you live fully in the now, you tap into a source of power that transforms your life. You no longer react to situations with fear or resistance because you are anchored in the reality of the present. Instead of being controlled by the mind's stories, you respond to life with clarity, wisdom, and grace. Presence also deepens your connection with others. When you are truly present, you listen without judgment and engage with authenticity. This creates space for genuine relationships, free from the ego's need for control or validation. Tolle emphasizes that living in the now doesn't mean neglecting the practical aspects of life, such as planning or setting goals. These activities are part of the physical world. However, they should not consume your awareness. The key is to approach them from a place of presence, fully grounded in the reality of the moment. Embracing the now, the present moment is always there for you, no matter what is happening in your life. Even during challenging times, the now contains a sense of peace and strength that you can access. This doesn't mean denying or suppressing pain. Instead, it means fully experiencing life as it is, without resistance or judgment. Toll encourages you to experiment with presence. Throughout your day, pause and ask yourself, am I fully here in this moment? Notice when your mind drifts into the past or future, and gently bring your attention back to the now. Over time, this practice will deepen your connection to the present and free you from the mind's time-bound patterns. In conclusion, the present moment is not just a fleeting point in time. It is the eternal reality in which life unfolds. By stepping into the now, you discover a state of freedom, peace, and fulfillment that transcends the limitations of the mind. Chapter 3. Moving Beyond the Mind. In this chapter, Eckhart Tolle delves deeper into the mechanics of the mind and its role in perpetuating suffering. He emphasizes that to experience true peace and freedom, one must learn to go beyond the limitations of the mind. The key lies in recognizing that the mind is merely a tool and not the essence of who we are. By understanding this, we can begin to break free from its grip and live in alignment with the deeper consciousness that exists within us. The mind as a source of suffering, Tolle begins by explaining that the mind's primary function is to think, analyze, and interpret. While this ability has allowed humanity to create and innovate, it also comes with a downside: overthinking. Most people are trapped in incessant mental chatter, unable to stop thinking, even when it's unnecessary or unhelpful. This constant stream of thoughts creates an inner noise that obscures the deeper peace within us. More importantly, the mind tends to dwell on the past or project into the future, rarely engaging fully with the present. This habit keeps us in a state of dissatisfaction, as we either regret or relive the past or anxiously anticipate the future. A major theme in this chapter is that identifying with the mind creates a false sense of self. This false self, or ego, thrives on attachment to thoughts, emotions, and external achievements. However, the ego's needs are insatiable, leading to a never-ending cycle of desire, fear, and suffering. Recognizing thought patterns. Tolle invites readers to observe their own thoughts and mental patterns. He explains that this active observation creates a gap between you and your thoughts, revealing that you are not your mind. Instead, you are the awareness behind the thoughts. Here's an exercise he suggests. Sit quietly and allow your mind to think freely without resisting or controlling it. Notice the thoughts that arise. Instead of engaging with them, simply observe them. Ask yourself, who is observing these thoughts? This question shifts your attention to the awareness that is separate from the mind. This simple practice helps you disidentify from your thoughts, which Tolle calls the first step to liberation. What lies beyond the mind? When you stop identifying with your mind, you begin to access a deeper state of awareness. Tolle refers to this as being or conscious presence. This state is free from mental noise and filled with a sense of peace, aliveness, and connection to the universe. Being is not something you create or achieve. It's already within you. It's the essence of who you are. However, the mind often obscures this truth, keeping you focused on external distractions and inner turmoil. By practicing presence, you can reconnect with this deeper dimension of yourself. Freedom from ego. The ego, as Tolle describes it, is a mental construct that identifies with form, whether it's physical possessions, achievements, roles, or even opinions. It constantly seeks validation and superiority, leading to conflict both internally and externally. For example, when someone disagrees with your opinion, the ego feels threatened and reacts defensively. When you achieve a goal, the ego feels temporarily satisfied but quickly shifts to wanting something else. This cycle of attachment and dissatisfaction perpetuates suffering. To break free, you must recognize the ego for what it is, a false sense of self, and shift your focus to the present moment. The role of emotions. Tolle explains that emotions are closely tied to the mind. They are the body's response to the mind's thoughts. For instance, a fearful thought triggers a physical reaction in the body, such as a racing heart or shallow breathing. By observing your emotions without judgment, you can trace them back to the thoughts that created them. This awareness allows you to break the cycle of unconscious reactivity. The practice of presence. Tolle outlines practical steps to move beyond the mind and into a state of presence. Watch the thinker. Spend time observing your thoughts without judgment. Recognize when the mind starts to wander into the past or future and gently bring it back to the present. Anchor yourself in the now. Use your senses to ground yourself in the moment. Pay attention to the sights, sounds, and sensations around you. Focus on your breath. The breath is always in the present moment. By focusing on your breathing, you can quiet the mind and enter a state of presence. Accept what is. Instead of resisting the present moment, embrace it fully, even if it's uncomfortable. Resistance creates suffering, while acceptance brings peace. The rewards of going beyond the mind. When you move beyond the mind, you discover a profound sense of freedom. You are no longer controlled by your thoughts or emotions, but instead operate from a place of clarity, wisdom, and inner peace. Tolle emphasizes that this shift doesn't happen overnight. It requires practice and patience. However, even small moments of presence can transform your life, allowing you to experience the joy and aliveness that are always available in the now. Chapter 4. Freeing yourself from mental chains. The human mind, while an incredible tool, often becomes its own greatest limitation. It distracts us, misleads us, and keeps us anchored in a cycle of thoughts about the past or future, robbing us of the richness of the present moment. This chapter explores how to break free from these mental chains and fully embrace the power of now. Understanding the mind's obsession with time. The mind has a natural tendency to wander between two constructs, the past and the future. It feeds on memories of what was and dreams or fears of what might be. While useful for planning and learning, this obsession with time becomes a barrier to living fully. When you're constantly thinking about yesterday or worrying about tomorrow, you miss the beauty and simplicity of the life unfolding right now. The first step in breaking this cycle is to understand that time is an illusion. It exists only in the mind. The past is a collection of memories and the future is merely a projection. The present, however, is real. It is the only moment where life happens. Recognizing this truth can fundamentally shift the way you experience reality. The emotional weight of the past. Much of our suffering is tied to what we carry from the past. Old wounds, regrets, and unresolved conflicts create a heavy emotional baggage that influences our present. This emotional burden is what I call the pain body, a kind of energy that lives within us and is fed by negative thoughts. The pain body thrives in a mind obsessed with the past. It wants you to revisit those memories, to relive the hurt, and to feel stuck. But this cycle doesn't define you. To release yourself, you must become aware of this pain body and observe it from a place of detachment. Instead of identifying with your pain, you acknowledge it as something separate from your true self. Once you stop feeding the pain body, it weakens. This process isn't immediate, but with practice, you'll notice a profound sense of lightness as you let go of the past. Becoming a witness to your thoughts. One of the most empowering practices is learning to observe your thoughts without becoming them. Think of your mind as a flowing river. Each thought is like a leaf carried by the current. Instead of being swept away, stand on the riverbank and watch the leaves pass. This practice creates a space between you and your thoughts, helping you realize that you are not your mind. The more you cultivate this awareness, the easier it becomes to return to the present moment. A simple way to practice this is by focusing on your body. Feel the rise and fall of your breath. Notice the weight of your hands or the sensation of your feet on the ground. These physical anchors pull your attention away from the mind and into the now. Time, a double-edged sword. Time can be both a tool and a trap. On one hand, it's necessary for practical purposes, like scheduling or setting goals. On the other hand, it becomes destructive when it consumes your thoughts and disconnects you from the present. The key is to use clock time for planning, but avoid getting lost in psychological time. Psychological time occurs when you obsess over what has already happened or what might happen. It's the source of anxiety, stress, and unhappiness. To free yourself, regularly ask, "Am I fully present right now?" If the answer is no, gently redirect your attention to whatever you're doing or feeling in the moment. The power of acceptance. At the heart of living in the now is acceptance. Resistance to the present moment creates suffering. For example, when you fight against a situation you can't change, you create inner turmoil. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means acknowledging what is, without judgment. When you accept the present moment fully, you align yourself with reality. This alignment brings peace and clarity, allowing you to take meaningful action if needed. Acceptance transforms challenges into opportunities and helps you move through life with a sense of ease. Chapter 5. Surrender to the present moment. One of the greatest truths about life is that much of our suffering is rooted in resistance. We resist circumstances, emotions, and events, trying to impose our will on situations we cannot control. In this chapter, we explore the power of surrender, not as an act of defeat, but as a transformative step toward peace and alignment with life itself. Understanding resistance. Resistance arises when we reject the present moment. We label certain situations as bad, wishing they were different. This internal struggle doesn't change reality. It only creates frustration and stress. For instance, when stuck in traffic, resisting the situation doesn't move the cars. It only stirs anger within. Resistance separates us from life because it places conditions on our happiness. We think, I'll be happy when this changes or when I achieve that. But life unfolds in the present, not in some imagined future. Surrender versus giving up. Surrender often carries a negative connotation, as if it means giving up or admitting failure. But true surrender is an act of courage and wisdom. It's about accepting what is, without judgment, and aligning with the flow of life. Surrender doesn't mean inaction. If a situation can be changed, you take action from a place of clarity and acceptance, not from resistance or fear. For example, if you're unhappy in your job, surrendering means acknowledging your dissatisfaction without resentment, then taking thoughtful steps to improve or change your circumstances. The role of ego in resistance. The ego thrives on resistance. It wants to be in control, to dictate how life should unfold. When reality doesn't match its expectations, the ego reacts with frustration, anger, or despair. This is why surrender feels so threatening to the ego. It undermines its sense of power. However, by surrendering, you move beyond the ego's narrow perspective. You stop seeing life as something to conquer and instead embrace it as it is. This shift dissolves much of the inner conflict created by the ego. Finding strength in surrender. Paradoxically, surrender brings immense strength. When you stop resisting life, you conserve the energy wasted on struggle. This energy can then be directed toward growth, creativity, and problem solving. Consider a river flowing around a rock. The water doesn't resist the obstacle, it simply flows, finding the path of least resistance. Over time, the rock is worn down, but the water remains unchanged. This is the essence of surrender, working with life's flow rather than fighting against it. Embracing the now fully surrender anchors you in the present moment. It teaches you to say yes to life, no matter the circumstances. This doesn't mean you approve of every situation, but you acknowledge it as part of your journey. When you embrace the now, even challenging experiences become opportunities for growth. Pain, for instance, can be a powerful teacher if you stop resisting it. By sitting with discomfort and observing it without judgment, you often find that it loses its intensity. Surrendering to people and relationships. Surrender isn't limited to external events. It also applies to relationships. Much conflict arises when we try to control others or impose our expectations on them. True surrender in relationships means accepting people as they are, without trying to change them. This doesn't mean tolerating harmful behavior. Instead, it means recognizing that each person has their own journey and struggles. By releasing the need to control others, you create space for healthier, more authentic connections. Letting go of why me? One of the most liberating acts of surrender is letting go of the question, why me? This question keeps you trapped in victimhood, blaming life or others for your struggles. Instead, shift your focus to, what can I learn from this? Or how can I grow through this? Surrender doesn't guarantee that life will be free of challenges, but it changes how you experience them. Instead of seeing obstacles as enemies, you view them as part of the unfolding of life, trusting that each moment has its purpose.